Picture a dense rainforest where monkeys hunt through the canopy, rivers roar, and thick rain clouds actually form and swirl in the air. This entire environment exists underground, encased within massive walls of solid rock. This ecosystem remains buried hundreds of meters beneath the jungles of Vietnam. Cut off from the rest of the planet for millions of years, it went entirely undetected until its full exploration in 2009. This diagram shows the sheer volume of Son Doong Cave. Holding 38.5 million cubic meters of space, its passages are large enough to accommodate a flying double-decker airplane or a 40-story skyscraper standing straight up without scraping the ceiling. Reaching this hidden world requires a heavy physical toll. You must trek through dense jungle for 9 hours and push through N Cave, the world's third-largest cave, just to reach the entrance. Look at those tiny campsites completely dwarfed by the limestone opening. Entering Son Doong marks the start of an expedition into a self-sustaining subterranean world governed by its own internal climate and geological logic. Descending into the pitch-black section known as the Hope and Vision Passage, you are walking on the crushed remains of ancient sea creatures. The bedrock here is calcium-rich limestone laid down over 450 million years ago. This diagram illustrates exactly how a cavity of this magnitude forms. First, deep tectonic shifts physically fracture the bedrock, creating a network of deep fault lines. Then, acidic rainwater seeps into those cracks. Because calcium dissolves easily in acid, the water slowly eats away the limestone, hollowing out immense voids over millions of years. While that chemical erosion is slow, the cave is also shaped by sudden violence. Heavy, rapid seasonal floods frequently rip through these passages, dragging mud and debris with them and physically scouring the cave floor. Water dripping from the ceiling leaves behind tiny trace amounts of minerals. To build the 80-meter-tall stalagmites found deeper in the cave, single water droplets had to fall in the exact same spot for roughly 800,000 years. The skyscraper-sized emptiness of Son Doong is actually a physical record of deep time. Every echoing passage is the result of continuous, unseen, destructive forces. When you strip an environment entirely of sunlight, biology has to get incredibly creative to survive the deep darkness. In pitch-black water, eyes are a biological waste of energy. The fish here have evolved to be completely pale and entirely blind. They navigate and hunt solely by feeling subtle vibrations in the water, meaning their other senses have become hyper-tuned to the dark. Predators have adapted extremely strange strategies to secure a meal in the absolute darkness. Up on the rocky cave ceiling, cave worms drop glowing, sticky threads, acting as a perfect bioluminescent lure to trap flying insects looking for an exit. There are even formations here known as phytokarst rocks, shaped by a mix of calcium and growing algae. They behave like semi-living organisms, physically stretching and bending their rocky structures toward any trace amounts of light. Absolute isolation forces life to abandon the standard rules of surface biology. The result is a fragile ecosystem of highly specialized creatures that could never survive up above. But the darkness eventually breaks. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, the underground river weakened portions of the limestone ceiling until the rock failed and collapsed, creating massive sinkholes known as dolines. Suddenly, direct sunlight is pouring into a cavern 250 meters below ground. When that light hits deep soil, fertilized by millions of years of backguano, it triggers a biological explosion. Because sunlight only enters from directly above, plant life engages in fierce competition. Trees here abandon the need to grow wide trunks. Instead, they prioritize height, shooting up to 50 meters into the air just to catch those tight vertical beams of sun. This isolated forest has even attracted primates. It is likely the only cave environment where canopy-dwelling monkeys have migrated downward, claiming this subterranean jungle as their home to hunt for snails. Nature has weaponized the structural failure of the cave roof, turning a massive collapse into the foundation for a thriving, impossible oasis. Deep in the cave lies a final physical barrier, the Great Wall of Vietnam. It is an imposing 80-meter-high wall of solid karst rock, surrounded entirely by a deep jade-green underground lake. Embedded perfectly within these ancient rock walls are the remains of creatures that vanished long before the dinosaurs. These circular patterns are tetracoralia, extinct species of carnivorous sea coral that died out over 300 million years ago. That is the striking duality of Son Doong. It is simultaneously a perfectly preserved graveyard for ancient, long-dead oceans and an active, humming laboratory for newly evolving species. The strict isolation that originally hid this cavern from the world is exactly what keeps it alive today. Human access remains strictly protected for a reason. It is the only way to prevent the destruction